Welcome back to You're Absolutely Right, the hallucination-free podcast where two principal engineers talk about software, tech, and life. I'm Scott, and this is Wes. Wes, are you ready for Christmas?
Yes and no. It's been kind of a weird season where I don't know if we've gotten like fully into the Christmas mood. But yeah, I mean, my kids are ready, so that makes you a little bit more ready for it. But
Yeah,
I don't
kids
know.
are
How about
always
y'all?
ready for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the countdown. Do y'all do the countdowns and stuff? I mean, your kids are a little bit older than mine, but mine are like every morning, the second they wake up, they run downstairs and do the little countdown, switch that. And so it's like the highlight of their day is changing a number on a calendar, basically.
Yeah, they always know how many days because they'll tell me, and they'll be like 9 days until Christmas. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, where did the time go? But
Yeah.
yeah, they're excited. And we have the elf on the shelf, so they always look to see where the elf is in the morning and
Nice.
how many days till Christmas. And yep, they're ready.
Yeah. Well, good.
Yeah. So I'm excited to hear today. I know you've been doing some interesting things, working on a new app. We chatted a bit about some of the stuff you were doing, like using Claude from your phone, giving it access to GitHub, and kind of doing that. So what were you building? Was it your new Grant Link app from your phone?
Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to kind of have an experiment of seeing how far I could get with like 95% AI for everything. And so I'm working on an app called Grant Link, which is basically a QuickBooks Online app that will allow nonprofits to manage their like grant funds better because QuickBooks is built for small businesses, not nonprofits. And there's lots of rules that you have to do around grant fund management and reporting and all that stuff. Aside from that, I didn't know that before starting working on this. I was just like, I think it'd be cool to like try to find a, a niche area of a marketplace that I could try to like break into or create an app as fast as I could and see if I could generate some uh, revenue and users from that. So I pulled up Claude and it was Opus 4.5, I think, still. And I was like, all right, let's just do a deep research through the QuickBooks Online app marketplace and let's look for underserved industries like and gaps in the marketplace for those. Like I'm trying, like as purposely trying to find industries that aren't super popular but still going to have a good user base. And it spit out a couple of options, and this nonprofits being one of them popped up. And I've always wanted to do like mission minded work with software engineering too. So like I was like, oh, all right, let's dive into this. So I just kept talking to Claude like for a couple of days of like, okay, what would this look like? What's the actual workflow of like financial people at nonprofits working with grant management? And so because I had no idea like how any of that was actually done, but I mean, I was just talking to an AI for multiple days and I was like, I think there's actually like a like an opportunity here for it. And so then I was like, all right, well, let's just start planning out what that would look like and start building that. And so 90 to 95% of all the code is written with AI. All of the knowledge has come with AI. And I think there's going to be a limit too, right? I haven't really talked with users, but I already have two people on a wait list that I want to talk to, and I'm going to have a demo set up to show them what I've done. And so like I still know that I need real world feedback, but just being able to get into a totally new industry and marketplace just with AI and learn about it by talking to it was a totally new world that no, I think the barriers come way down, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that sense. So I think, yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting project of like, how far can I get? How much can I do with AI? And I mean, so far, I, I haven't hit a wall or anything, or in like, I haven't felt like going to need to go back and rewrite the code base or anything like that. So, I mean, and with that, like you said, I'm using like Claude on mobile app, I'm using AMP, I'm using Claude on the desktop. I'm using Open Code. And so I'm just trying all these new tools to really see what fits. And the killer is this Opus 4.5, I think is the best model that we've seen yet for coding. And so that's been really nice. But some of like the cool tricks of, I've even been like, okay, you're a CPA accountant that specializes in nonprofit grant fund management, but you're also an expert software engineer. I've given you access to my code. Now I want you to review it to make sure that it's actually going to like accomplish what you need as a CPA working with nonprofits. And so it's actually, instead of it being like a purely technical review, it actually does it from a more business focused review and understanding code. So there's just been a few cool things like that. I'm like, this is actually really good to just like have an expert. Feels like you have an expert. So whether that's all true and it's going to actually work is remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But it'll
That's
it'll be
that's the big
interesting,
question there is
right?
like you can have the AI do a bunch of stuff for you, but is it actually going to work? I'm skeptical because I don't know how much hanging fruit there is still out there because we've had the internet for long enough where people can scour online forums and marketplaces, and I feel like that's where everybody starts. And AI can do that more quickly for you, but yeah, it'll be interesting. This is an interesting experiment. It'll be cool to see how it plays out.
Yeah, agreed. Because I mean, that's what it did, right? It just looked at Reddit. It looked at forums, and part of the benefit is, I mean, QuickBooks is big, but their marketplace isn't like a super desirable marketplace. I don't think, not like Shopify's App Store, WordPress's plugin marketplace. So maybe I just got lucky in picking that, and it got lucky in finding this. But I mean, there were legit Reddit things from months ago where people were like, "This is such a pain. I have to spend 8 hours a day pulling all this data out of QuickBooks, then putting it in a spreadsheet, and then we have to put it in a report to send to the funders." And I'm like, we can do all that automatically. And then the cool thing is use AI to actually generate reports. And so I have an AI agent in the app that has access to all their grant data and all their information that they can generate these reports that they send to the funders who gave them the money and say, here's how we're using your money and stuff like that. And so like that was like hours and hours of work for them. That's still a validated problem, but whether I've solved that problem, I don't know yet. We'll have to find out. But
And whether people are willing to pay for the problem is another big one because
yeah,
there's lots of problems you can solve in the most elegant way that no one will ever pay for. And
absolutely.
there's just no other way than just trying to make it work.
Right. And I think that's the coolest thing. Like, is that's what I mean. The barrier has been lowered, right? We can try to make things work so much faster and like hopefully get to a place where you can get feedback faster. Like I would still be like barely building the stuff if I was doing it by hand on the sides in the evenings and stuff like that. And so I can actually have like a working MVP to actually put in front of people and say, does this solve your problem now? And so they have something real to look at instead of like just a very ephemeral conversation of like, what would solve your problem, you know? And so I'm hoping that that will actually help. And then they'll be like, yes, I see this. I see where you're going. Tweak these 5 things or change these things. And then you're on the right track. And I can get to that feedback loop faster and providing them a real valuable product versus a year in development on the side and all that. And then you find out you don't have a good fit.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times the mistake people make is they'll build something in their basement, in secret for like a year, and then they'll release it, and then nobody wants it, and it's this wasted time. But it seems like now with AI, you can get to the MVP/validation phase much quicker, even if it's with software that's not going to be the final product. You can create something that actually works. You can put in front of people, see if they'll pay for it, instead of doing all these things people used to do, which is where you'd put up a landing page before you even built anything and say, put in your credit card here if you want to buy this thing that you just made marketing materials for. There's all these like tricks you can do, right?
Right.
Or you just ask people, or like you show them some mock-ups. But now you can just like build the whole thing and then see if it works. That's pretty cool.
It is cool. Yeah. So, I mean, I'll keep you updated, and we'll see. I would love for it to work, but if not, it was just a fun experiment, and I've learned a lot doing it too. I mean, this is what I've been digging into convex and all that stuff for the database, and really enjoyed that, and tan stack start. So like it hasn't been a pointless endeavor if it doesn't make any money.
Yeah, like you're learning either way.
Right.
So tell me, I know you've been messing with different, like you said, open code, Claude. I know you've messed around with like Cursor and you have AMP and VS Code. So what's your
Mm-hmm.
take on these tools now and the state of them? What do you like and what do you don't like?
They're all kind of different. I mean, I still really like AMP for being able to switch models. So I do find a ton of use and benefit out of like doing work with Opus 4.5 and then being able to say, like with AMP, being able to say, ask the Oracle to review it and give me a different opinion. And that goes and uses GPT 5.1, I guess. I don't know if they've upgraded to 5.2. And so like, I think there's a benefit to that. And I like that about open code as well, is that you can switch. Open code, you still have to be like, okay, is this a Gemini 3 thing? Is it a GPT 5 thing? Is it an Opus 4.5 or an Sonnet 4.5? And like, so I don't love like having to always be like, which model do I really want to do? But I do like being able to pitch the models against each other. I think my favorite thing about Claude has been actually using it from my phone. And so I have the pro plan, and I hit the rate limits pretty often. That's probably the most frustrating thing. And I don't want to pay $200 a month to not have that, because I think I could instead just use AMP and end up paying less than $200 a month and get the same amount of output. But the biggest benefit with Claude is I can do it from my phone, and it spins up like their little sandbox that connects to my GitHub repo. And so it can see the code and it'll run it, it'll open it or create a PR for me. And then I can jump over to GitHub mobile app and review it. So I do a lot of the smaller stuff on there, or I'll let it try to do a bigger task, but then I always pull it down locally and like run it and test it and make sure it's actually doing the right thing, versus letting it just be a vibe code. Like, okay, I'm sure it got it good and merge in and good to go. But like if it's like hey, go add a powered by grant link footer to the reports that we generate, I let it go and do that. I look at it. And so I'll just kind of do that throughout the day, of send it little tasks and review the PR. And then I just go ahead and merge it. And then the next time I'm back at my computer for side stuff, I'll like kind of do a high level overview of it as well. Or I'll be like, or I'll let it like on my phone, be like, okay, go research this thing. And so I'll, like sometimes I'll just run security reviews again. And so I'll have Opus 4.5 be like, okay, I want you to look at all the security best practices and make sure we're not missing anything, or that we haven't forgotten an authorization check for this convex mutation or something like that. And so I'll just let it go and run and do that and just give me a report that I review. So I like having Claude that has access to my code base right there on my phone, versus always having to be on my computer or stuff like that to do it. I'm not really using Claude Code CLI. I still prefer AMPs, or I do like Open Code's CLI better than Claude Code for that. One of the things with Open Code that everybody says is good about it is it has access to your LSP. But I haven't really seen much of a difference in that. Or like, I just really haven't been like, oh man, this is great that it has access to that. So, I mean, maybe it's hidden and it catches things before I even realize it, where AMP might have like introduced lint errors or something like that. And you just don't even know them with open code because it already is aware of it. I don't know. I just haven't seen it. So I still think open code and AMP are probably the best CLI tools. And oh, well, AMP's new review panel, have you tested that out yet?
I just saw that. I haven't used it yet.
I actually really like that. So I'm using that all the time. So basically now in VS Code, I don't even have that left panel open with File Explorer or Git or anymore. So like I find no need to go looking through files or anything. I'm just asking the LLM in the chat, and then I'm going to the AMP's new review panel, which is really good, where you can ask it to review like your staged, your unstaged, or like multiple branches and stuff like that. You can have it review a whole lot more than just your unstaged changes. And then it will have an actual review model or review agent that does it. And it gives you a really helpful output where it says, oh, you might want to do this. You can click copy and it automatically jumps you back to the chat panel just to paste it in and start working on it from there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm really very much just using chat for everything or an LLM for everything these days.
Yeah. Do you think that this is going to make IDEs obsolete because you
Mm.
just have a chat and it just shows you a diff right in the chat and you don't like what do you need an IDE for at that point?
Yeah, I had that thought a long time ago that I'm like, I think IDEs need to move to review based versus editing based.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I mean, I just think in 5 years, nobody's going to be writing code by hand. You're going to be
Oh
reviewing
man,
in 5 years.
you heard it here first, folks. Heard it here
It's
first.
true.
Wes has called the death of handwriting code in 5 years.
Handwriting code. Yes. But
I disagree with that,
coding,
by the way. I think
really,
not we won't be writing all the code by hand, but we will be writing some code by hand still.
what kind of code do you think you'll be writing by hand?
So one of the things that helps me, I actually think and write code at the same time, and so it actually helps me to be writing code and thinking as I put it there. I'm thinking, oh yeah, this is how it should go, and this is where it needs to be, and actually, no, I need to change this. It's hard for me to always think about upfront everything up front. And especially for small changes, if you're just adding like a few lines of code here and there, sometimes to explain the context to the LLM of everything it needs to know to make a few small changes to the code. And especially when you don't 100% know exactly how it should look, it's just faster for me to write it myself. And I have a hard time thinking that the LLM is going to completely take over everything and we won't be doing small things here and there. But I could be wrong.
I mean, I think it's just going to get faster to where it's not going to make sense, or our input is going to be different, maybe all voice or something like that, or its understanding of the code base. It's going to be so much greater than ours. Then it's going to be able
That's
to
true.
grok much more quickly where something should be versus us diving through that. Where did I know I had something over here with utilities, and then you actually put utility somewhere else. Like it's just going to be able to grok that a whole lot faster. That I think it's still going to be make this change, and it's going to go to it. I still think it's 5 years out. Like I don't think we're looking at like 1, 2, 3 years, but I think 5 years we're really probably going to start like coding will still exist, software engineering will still exist, but the medium by which we do it will be all through LLMs. I don't know if it'll all
Yeah.
be through chat, but it'll be through LLMs.
Right. I mean, I can see that, especially at the rate of change that's happening right now. 5 years from now is going to be absolutely insane. Like what's
Yeah.
happened in the last year or even 6 months has been completely like a paradigm shift. And I'm sure progress will slow down a bit. I'm sure we'll hit some type of plateau and it start being like more like linear growth, but I can imagine it being just drastically different. And the other thing I've been thinking about is that one of the reasons why I have problems working with LLM sometimes is because I'm using an existing code base that the LLM didn't write. And we just were reading that article that was, did Ant put it out? The agent code base by agents for
Yeah.
agents, something like that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and they were talking about how basically if you just let the LLM write all the code the way it wants to write it and you don't correct it and you don't tell it to like change the name of a function here, actually like put this utilities folder over here instead. And if you just let it write it the way it wants to write it, it does a much better job throughout the whole project. And so some of the problems that I have is where the LLM will make dumb mistakes. I think it's because I wrote the code base and then I'm throwing it in there and expecting it to understand how I do things when it
Hmm.
would do them differently. And so it makes me think like we kind of need to rewrite all of our code bases with AI the way AI wants to do it so that it will just be more successful in the long term.
Yeah. And I think that's why I have the opinion that I do, because I'm mostly on greenfield stuff and mostly by myself for things doing like more exploratory things. And so I can just let it rip and continue to let it rip on its own thinking and how it names things, how it wants to structure things. because they're not bad. They're not wrong. Like I'll stop it if there's something like totally wrong, but that doesn't really happen. The only time that happened was today that I can remember in a while. Is like it forgot to do an authorization check in an endpoint, and so like that's it. And I went back and said we need to add an authorization check here, and it said, "Oh, you're right. I'm going to do this." And it got the right scope, we got the right OpenFGA relation, and all that stuff that it needed to do that. And so, but I think it like I don't care what it names functions. I just say always make sure you have JS doc blocks for your functions, because I do like when I'm reviewing it, I like being able to see the TypeScript or like the types about it and have them nicely well organized so I can read the documentation that it's doing. And then, but I don't care if it names it like create this or create product or product create or whatever. Like I just don't really worry about stuff like that anymore. I let it go with whatever it thinks is the most common thing for do. And that's what they said in that article. Like there was that like switching views in TUI. Like the developer wanted a very specific
He, he
swap
wanted it to
screens.
be
Yeah.
swap screens, and it made present. He changed it to swap screens, and then he said it kept hallucinating later that it should be present, and so it didn't find the present function in it, and it messed up. But he said once he let it just rewrite the name to present, then everything worked great after that. And it
Yeah.
seems to have to do with just the way the model was trained, the model weights. It expects certain things, and if you just let it find the things it expects, even if it's not 100% perfect the way you want, it doesn't really matter because it'll do a better job. And they're saying so with the AMP code base, because they let it do this, it's like it's the agent's code base. And so the agent understands it. It finds things that it expects to be there. It doesn't have to understand how some random human likes coding things. And so it can just crank on it.
Right. But I think that's a paradigm mental shift for us, right?
Yeah.
Especially your senior leaders, because they're used to working with other engineers where they're more malleable. You hope at least that you can say, hey, we like naming it this way. We like following this structure. And the humans can adapt a whole lot faster. I mean, the LLM can't, right? Only for that session that you're in. Other than the minute you start up a new session, you have to make sure that previous context is locked in there. And sometimes it's still going to miss it if it's overloaded with too much context. But if you just let it run off of what its core training is, it does a whole lot better. Where we're just used to being able to be like, oh, hey, these engineers on my team, this is how we do it. Everything needs to adhere to that. And they can adapt to that way easier than an LLM can, or they can remember that over longer streams of work, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Another banger by the AMP team.
Always.
Yeah. Okay. Should we dive into this Opus 4.5 stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me show this tweet here. We have it there. Okay. So Dax put out a tweet, and he basically said, hey, I don't understand all this AI hype, guys. AI is just like NeoVim or functional programming, where we're all hyped up. We all think it's so great. And then eventually like the hype cycle dies and we go back to it's just like another tool. So this is one of Dax's takes that I actually strongly disagree with, which doesn't happen often because he's way smarter than me and a way better programmer at least. But actually
sometimes you always can't tell if he's being serious or not, though, right?
It's true. This might just be like
Bait. Yeah.
clickbait. But either way, I've seen a lot of this stuff lately on Opus 4.5 is so good. People are like getting to the point now where they're like, hang on, guys, this is actually it's going to take my job now. And this started on this Reddit thread. I've actually seen multiple people with this take. I myself have been more fearful about my job than I have been previously, although I vacillate day to day on that. And I'm not super scared about my job specifically, but I think that I now am convinced that just the software engineering job as we know it is dead. And it's going to take time, especially in big companies, for this to like percolate, but it is not going to be the same ever again. So we had this tweet. So Dax basically said, you know, yeah, so I already went through what Dax said. So here, there was another guy also who had another take. He said Opus 4.5 is like so good, like maybe we don't need engineers to do developer experience anymore because like it just takes care of everything for you. Like you don't need an agent harness, you don't need a UI, you don't need multiple agents. All this stuff is basically just cope in the short term until the models get good enough to just do everything. And I kind of am seeing that as well. I'm kind of thinking like what is going to be left for us to do, because these models are going to solve all the problems that we would normally solve, and they're going to do it so quickly that all this stuff we're building now around the models is eventually just not going to be needed anymore. Like we're already seeing how AMP was talking about, they ripped out their planning agent, like all the like UI UX stuff. I even think like a review agent from AMP, like it's cool now, but it's not going to be needed eventually.
Right.
Like the agent that they have that goes and looks up articles, the librarian, the Oracle, all that stuff is just short-term stuff. So the question then is like, what value do engineers actually provide? And so there was a good article by this guy, Obi Fernandez, and let me pull this up. And it's called "What Happens When the Coding Becomes the Least Interesting Part of the Work." And his point was basically that writing code is just not the value that engineers bring, or that senior engineers bring. And it's more like thinking around it. He has some examples that I can read, but so he's saying like a sense for blast radius, knowing which changes should be made loudly and which should be contained and kept quiet, a feel for sequencing, knowing when something is technically correct but the system isn't ready for it, reversibility, social cost, false confidence. I would also add in here thinking about when writing code is not the right solution to the problem. Because one of the things that we're going to run into with AI, I think, is that everyone's just going to throw AI at the problem, and AI is going to write a bunch of code, and then we're going to have a bunch of tech debt. And maybe that was never the right solution, because in a sense, like all code is tech debt, because what you really want to do is just get money from a customer and solve their problem. You don't want a bunch of code. The code is just the way that we like solve the problem, but you actually want as little code as possible. So there was that take. And then I think there was there one more? Yeah. I think that's
it. Yeah,
that's
Yeah,
it. But yeah, what's your take on this?
I mean, I agree with you. I disagree with Dax whether it's real or not. I guess it's still up for question. But I did want to mention, like, he kind of says AI will be like NeoVim, and I really disagree with that. I think NeoVim is like the move from just a combustion engine tractor that just has some levers and like it can get the job done, to what they have now for these tractors, where it has like GPS, it keeps the tractor straight on line. It's like infinitely configurable to that. Like NeoVim is a better solution to the experience around writing code, right? And just like these new tractors were a better solution to the task of plowing a field. But AI has totally changed it. It's not just a better solution for writing code. It completely removes the need to write code. Like,
well, I don't think it removes the need. It automates it.
Well, fair. But we don't need to build. NeoVim is a solution around making it easier for humans to write code.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's more just removes that, like, it's not it's more like a horse to a tractor, where NeoVim is like a one step up of like more configuration for it. But I just think it's more revolutionary than NeoVim is to just a text file.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, to me, it's more like humans working on the assembly line versus robots on the assembly line.
Yeah,
because it's replacing manual labor with robot labor.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm on board with Opus 4.5. Like, I think it's going to change it drastically. And like I said, I mean, I think Opus 4.5 is only going to get better, right? We're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Imagine
and
what it's going to be in a year. Like I can't
right.
even. It's going to be insane.
So I think we have to then be like, okay, what does that mean for our jobs? Like, I don't see our jobs. I don't see in 5 years there not being software engineers at all. I think it has to move your focus. And we've talked about this before. Like, your focus is more business focused, right? Like, what is more on what we need to build versus the very detailed specifics of how it should be built. But like, it's a higher level, like, this is how it should be done, this is how it should be architected, but we don't really care about writing the semantics of it anymore. Maybe not care, but we won't need to. And so I still think it has to be like, okay, how can I leverage AI to write software as quickly as I can to provide a new solution that provides value to the business that I'm working on, or your own business, or whatever you're doing, right? And so for now, we as humans still have to be in that seat, and I think we'll have to be in that seat 5 years from now too. So like, it still has to be, we're choosing the right things to work on. Just, and like you said, it's not just throwing more code out there and using an AI just to spit out as much code as we possibly can. It's still having taste to know what should be built, right? And then using an LLM to build it.
Yeah, and I would give an example. I think from both of our careers, where AI is going to replace just writing code, and so that cannot be the only value that you bring. I think both of us have done a pretty good job of looking at the business value that we can bring to our organization, and then building things that work for the customer or fill a gap. I know recently you have been doing like market research and proposing these business solutions, and I've done some of the same. And I think that that's what engineers need to be focusing on now, is looking less at like how perfect can you get this function to be, how like great is this PR solving this Jira ticket. That stuff is not important anymore. What's important is understanding the value of your business, like how much, what the bottom line is, what actually brings dollars into your business, and then how are you contributing to that. And if you can't answer that question very well, you should find a way to insert yourself into the value equation there. And that often happens by doing things that no one asked you to do. And I think you and I have both done this quite a bit, where we're like, hey, we have ideas on how this business could be better, and we're going to propose a solution. And that is like, not a lot of people do that. And I know that both of us have been in these meetings with leadership where they're just like, this is so great, why don't more people do this? And like, nobody else is doing things that they haven't been asked to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, there was another meeting that I was invited to with leadership that I could have just sat back and then just chimed in a couple of times in the meeting. But the more I was thinking, I was like, I have a lot of thoughts around this. And so I spent like an hour, 2 hours with Claude typing out my thoughts and having it research stuff and having it like just write a document, and it spit out the document, and it resonated really well with people. And it was just more like, why not? Right? It's just something for somebody to read. The worst they can say is no, or that it doesn't align. And most of the times people are going to appreciate that leadership. Even if it doesn't align or it's not where they want to go, they give you feedback on that. And then you can say, oh, okay, now I understand where the business is going. Maybe I can now use some of my thoughts and retweak them to see what I can do to provide more value in that way. And so, I mean, I think you have to do it. You have to be business focused versus procedure focused around engineering. And so much of what we did previously was more procedure focused. Like, this is how you give a good code review. This is how you do good code mentoring. And now I think it's going to move more towards, this is how, like, understanding business models, how businesses grow, economics, people management, and all that. And so, I mean, I was just now thinking, like, if somebody came to me and said, I'm going to college Should I do computer science? I think I would say emphatically no. Go do business, and
Mm-hmm.
then but still study up computer science on the side so that you know how to talk to an AI to do it well. Because I mean, if they're starting college now, that's 4 years from now when they're going to be graduating, right? Like we have no idea what the world's going to be there, but we know we're still going to have businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to need to make money. We're going to have like businesses have to do that. So I think you need to focus more on that versus very specific algorithmic computer science approaches.
Yeah, I think AI has not changed the value equation of creating something that solves a real problem that people are willing to pay for and then going out and finding customers for that solution. None of that has changed with AI. It's
No.
only made the part where you write the code easier and maybe doing research and writing blog posts and things like that. But I think the job of a software engineer is going to morph into more being like product and engineering and possibly even marketing and management, all these things together. And I think you said our jobs are going to be like being really technical product managers, and I think that's possible. And then I replied, we might be more like meta founders, meaning like within the company you can have lots of little bubbles of just very small teams that are creating the entire product. And
Mm-hmm.
because we can move so fast now and doing everything, and if you understand that whole stack, I think that makes more sense to me. And the thing that's helped me the most with that is running my own business for, a decade or so, and understanding that like when you sign your own paycheck and you see that the dollars coming in go to your paycheck, and if dollars don't come in, they don't go to your paycheck, that like very quickly makes you focus super hard on just the bottom line of the company. Not that you don't
Yep.
care about technology and stuff, but you really don't care how perfect the code is or what the PRs look like, or like all these type of things that we obsess about in an enterprise company. None of that stuff really matters in a smaller company. And so
No.
I took that with me, and I think it's going to help moving into this new AI era of where being a software engineer is actually kind of being full stack product and engineering and marketing and everything, not just being full stack like front end and back end.
Right. No. Well, and when you think about it, when you have like a principal architect or something, they actually understand the business really, really well, usually, because they have to take the business and transform that into code. And so I think high level engineers normally do have a good understanding of the business. I think what we've lost is the ability to basically sit under the umbrella of high level principal engineers who understand the business and then distill that down into small tasks that people can just knock out without understanding the business, right? And so that luxury is gone. And instead, we all have to step up and be like, and view ourselves as like, okay, we're now principals, or like CEO mindset, product mindset, design mindset. And how do we make sure we're building towards those versus just being able to say, okay, I can let these other people who are engineers figure out all this stuff and then just give me my 10 Jira tasks to work on, and they're going to figure out how all of it comes together, right? We can't do that anymore because to properly work with AI at the speed that we need to and be effective, you got to understand the full picture, and you got to be able to use that to effectively make a difference in the business that you're working on versus letting other people deal with that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a very slow transition for big companies to
Yeah.
that, but I do think that smaller companies are going to be able to do that faster. I mean, like they're faster at everything. But yeah,
Hmm.
if you have a startup, you can just kind of start out that way. And it's going to be a huge difference when you run that out for like 3 to 5 years to see what happens after that amount of time. It's going to be a huge, huge difference between like a big company that's really very slowly moving towards this kind of AI native mindset.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
let
And
me
also,
jump. Oh, sorry, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead. I was just going to say, I still think the only thing that's going to maybe slow this down, or for small stuff or people doing stuff on the side, is cost, right? We have the luxury of working at companies or at GoDaddy that pays for our AI usage. And like, if you really want to use Claude to its fullest, you have to be shelling out $200 a month, right? Or paying $150 a month to open code or AMP to use that to any effective thing. And that's a lot of money still to throw into something that you're working on the side. And that's why I've been hampered with the Claude Pro limits, where if I hit the limit, I sit there and I wait instead of going and spending more money on it. Because I'm like, I don't want to go spend more money on this because I don't even know if it's going to make money
Yeah.
yet. Right. And I have spent money on it, but like I've been very aware of that I can't just let an AI go and run, because I don't want to end up with a bill of $150, $200 a month. And then 3 months down the road, have nothing to show for it in a business that doesn't have a product market fit for anything.
Yep.
So that is a barrier that's going to come down, but that is a barrier that we have right now. It's just the sheer cost of it and to really run with it.
Yeah. So jumping back to the labor and AI, there's this great article called "The Bubble is Labor," and he is this guy Daniel. What's his name? Daniel Meisler. So this is a really interesting article. I mean, the point is basically companies only hire people because they can't do all the work themselves, and basically the best state for a company is having no employees, because a company doesn't really want employees. They have to have employees because they can't do all the work themselves. So this is relevant in the AI world, because if AI is able to replace human labor, then a company does not need to have all that human labor, and it can get to its most desirable state, which is 0 employees. Now, I don't really think that this is what's going to happen, but it's an interesting idea to think about. Is that he was kind of saying, hey, I always just thought like jobs would always be there for me if I just went to college, and that this is just the state of the world, and that this is just always how it's going to be. But really it's not, because the employers don't really need you if they can replace you with AI. They don't really want you because you cost a lot of money, and if they can do it without you, they will. Now, I would say one contrary take to this is that with AI, I do think that there's still going to be a place for humans, because I think we're going to be able to generate much more software, and somebody still has to manage that software. If I think about, like, if I were to build, let's say, a service or an application or whatever it is, someone still needs to communicate that throughout the company. They need to manage it, maintain it. They need to integrate it with other services. They need to champion it so it actually gets use. They need to talk to customers about it. They need to understand how it fits into the system as a whole, all these type of things. And so that mental load is something that a human has to bear, at least for right now. And I do think that we'll have more of these types of things, more applications, more services, which means humans will probably just be managing more things. Not that you will just get rid of the humans and then have less APIs and services and things.
You may have a smaller spread of soft skills at companies. And so and I think maybe some of our reaction to this of being like, everybody expecting a job, you go to college and you expect a job, is because of the big influx of soft skill jobs like marketing, communications, computer science, and stuff like that, where you're not like doing hard labor or the like welding or plumbing or anything like that. And so now we're faced with AI being like, they can do pretty good soft skills, right? But you're right. Like, it's just going to be a different medium of managing that. But that's where your spread of soft skills that humans do might lessen. But we're still going to be needed to manage all. Now the AI is doing those soft skills that we used to do.
Right. And there are soft skills that AI can't do, which is
Correct.
like communication and creativity and things like that. And I think maybe that's more where we'll go, but those will be the more desirable skills, is the management and ideation and things like that, as opposed to the hard skills, like you said, of just writing the code.
Right.
For the next one, we have a lot of stuff we've been working on with MCP and tools. How do you use tools effectively? Does MCP actually suck now? Not filling up the context window with a million tools. all these type of things are problems that a lot of us are running into these days. And so how we're looking at those, how we're solving those things, we'll talk about that in the next one. Yeah.
Cool, man.
All right.
It was a pleasure, as always. Let's
All right,
go
Wes.
keep our jobs for a couple more years.
Sounds good. All right. See ya.
All right, see ya.